For a very long time, there has been a tight-knit community of keen software enthusiasts whose mission is to create a strong software scene with the idea that you can take hardware that you've purchased and customize it with third-party software to fit your wants and your needs. Samsung might have just killed that for its models, and here's why that's problematic. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and Samsung phones for the longest time were targets for custom software. Why? Because TouchWiz in the earlier models was bloated, it was a mess, it had really bad long-term software support, and in a short window of time actually really mismatched its software and hardware. It was a blot on the Samsung mobile name, and there's a reason why the perceived quality of Samsung mobiles increased quite dramatically once TouchWiz was gone. This phone might be the perfect example. It's the Samsung Galaxy S5, a phone that packed in so much potential, so many hardware features, so many specs, removable battery, microSD expansion, headphone port, IP rating, a gorgeous Quad HD screen. This thing was a beast, but it was never really well supported after the software ran out, and like I said before, not the sort of thing you really want to have to bend to or put up with when you're spending a lot of money on a smartphone. But conveniently, my colleague and good friend Alex Doby has flashed Lineage OS onto this phone, a free and open source replacement version of Android that sticks to the basics but does allow you to build on it. I highly recommend checking out the website for Lineage OS if you want to look deeper into the background behind that software, because it is quite fascinating. But what this has done is allow the phone released over 11 years ago to run Android 14, an OS that is some 8 versions newer than the one it was last updated to. So in this case, flashing Lineage OS has done two things. It has allowed this phone to stay more up to date, resulting in better compatibility with apps and games, but it's also freed this phone of the bloat and the divisive design that once plagued it. And that can be part of the experience if you want it to be. You spent the money that you earned on a product that you own, and you can do what you want with it. Makes sense, right? This Galaxy S5 isn't just suddenly very optimal to use and something I'd recommend you go and buy, by the way, but it makes the phone more usable in 2025. This Lineage OS version is Android 14, it looks and feels almost like Pixel Experience to be honest, minus the gimmicks, and it's a very clean interface. When swiping up from the app drawer you can see there's basically nothing here, it is very basic. We haven't even loaded up the Google services, so you really are left with practically nothing, making it ideal for someone who just wants a phone, something that doesn't track their data. Though you do of course have the ability to add whatever you want here because it's an open platform and Lineage OS is open source. It looks like Samsung has just decided to cut off that kind of support. Z Fold 7 and Z Flip 7 users have noticed that the OEM unlock toggle that you would normally find in the hidden developer options is missing on those phones, and making the bootloader lock down, meaning that flashing software like this just could not be a thing. And that's problematic for a few reasons. By the way guys, really trying to hit 500,000 subscribers, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that button, it would really help us out. Thank you very much. First of those reasons, the obvious being this is just another way for a big company to take away control that you have over your purchase. That is something that many will absolutely hate. One of the many reasons you might install a custom ROM in the first place is to get rid of that tracking and Googlification of your phone, to stop a company having constant access to your data. By locking this off as an option, you are forced into a corner here. That's something that just doesn't really sit right with me. Secondly, and this is a bit of a contentious one, but you're not given the opportunity to extend the life of your phone as well, potentially making it e-waste sooner rather than later. On the one hand, this is a real issue and something that if a phone like my S5 here didn't have as an option, then it would have been useless a very long time ago. But this is also sort of counteracted potentially by the very long-term first-party software support that has been promised by the likes of Samsung on the more recent phones, and they will supposedly deliver 7 years of OS upgrades, taking what you would buy a phone these days into 2032 with Android 22. That's pretty good going, but it's also not the entire point of bootloader unlocking and custom ROM flashing. Then there's the precedent this sets, which on the surface might seem incredibly impactful, but when you dig deeper, maybe not so. As Samsung is the king of Android, has been for the last decade or so now, and it sells the most Android phones every year and is one of the most influential companies. With it deciding to cut the bootloader unlocking, that could set the stage for the rest to follow. After all, phones these days are probably more similar now than they really ever have been, so it makes sense to me that other companies probably will follow suit. Let me know in the comments if you actually agree that phones feel samey, by the way, because I've seen some contentious comments in there. The thing is though, the ROMing and routing scene hasn't been what it was for a long time. With the aforementioned increase in mainstream long-term software support, along with generally just improved software across the board, there has been less and less reason to go through the hassle of messing with your phone software. And perhaps this news coming from Samsung really isn't that deep. And Samsung phones haven't exactly been the easiest to load custom software onto in the first place, and if you know, you know. The company's Knox program gets triggered when you root or install a custom ROM, meaning that if you ever did want to use sort of like Samsung Wallet, you once tripped it with custom software, wouldn't be able to. A lot of Galaxy users who have wanted to install something like Pixel Experience or Lineage OS in the past have resisted that temptation due to Knox security implementations. So this lockdown bootloader might not be as big of a deal with Galaxies in particular as it would be with other brands, regardless of the stature of Samsung as a company itself. Actually, if you've ever installed custom ROMs and tried to run apps like online banking or even some games, you'll know that often you can run into errors where the phones just refuse to load up applications for security reasons above everything else, which can make installing custom software a risk, or probably more so a headache. Software has improved significantly over the last 10 years, with so many great first-party options. With hardware having improved too, there's less need for custom software now than there was back in 2014, 2015. The custom software scene has died down to nowhere near what it was when I was installing stuff from XDA, when I spent hours on the forums flashing ROMs to my phones. And it was great fun, but times have changed, especially for Samsung's higher end models with upwards of, like I said before, 7 years of long-term update support, which of course extends their phone's lifespan significantly compared to the first-party support we had to deal with in the era of the Galaxy S5, and in the era where the modding scene was massive. That said, not having at least the option to unlock the bootloader is a kick in the teeth to anyone who wants to do more than just the average user and make their purchase their own. This likely spells the end of the ROMing scene as we know it, and perhaps a darker message about product ownership. Guys, this might be a controversial one, so please do let me know what you think on this topic in the comments. What do you think of this whole situation? I feel like it can only really be a bad thing in the grand scheme of things. I can't get past the feeling that control is just being taken away from us. Is that an overreaction? Is that a bit too much? Is it a bit tinfoil hatty? I don't know. Anyway, whilst you're down there, be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content. And of course, subscribe to never miss another upload. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I will catch you later. Cheers.